WNBA finals. And so I'll leave it there. I mean, I'm just obviously disheartened. I'm a human too. I have a family. I have 2 kids who are devastated by these comments. And so all I'll say is just, it's obviously been a tough week.
The WNBA may have just crossed a point of no return. And if the reports circulating out of league offices are accurate, this decision could haunt its future for years. For months, pressure has been building between the league's explosive surge in popularity and a leadership style rooted in old habits, but few expected that tension to rupture this fast. Now, alleged developments are rippling through the sports world, suggesting Commissioner Cathy Engelbert has moved towards sidelining Caitlin Clark after negotiations over a new collective bargaining framework collapsed in dramatic fashion. The claim is that Clark declined to sign an agreement insiders describe as an aggressive attempt to limit her influence and rein in her earning potential, triggering a response that looks more like a show of authority than sound governance. If league leadership believed this maneuver would force its most valuable asset into submission, they may have committed a staggering misread of leverage and public sentiment. The reaction hasn't been subtle or contained. It's been overwhelming, relentless, and impossible to ignore, signaling that this move has ignited far more resistance than control. Fans are walking away, season tickets are being dropped, leadership accountability is being demanded, and the financial foundation of women's basketball suddenly looks dangerously unstable. To grasp why a suspension of this nature would be so devastating, you have to look inside what reportedly unfolded during negotiations, because this was never just about salary. Accounts suggest the league presented Clark with a so-called tone-setting deal for the next labor era that came loaded with restrictive terms, expanded control over her public image, mandatory promotional obligations that would consume her off-season, and compensation that barely reflected her true market impact. In effect, the proposal asked her to carry the league's growth on her back while surrendering the very independence that made that growth possible. When she pushed the agreement back and declined, it wasn't merely a negotiation breakdown. It was a refusal to accept a long-standing system built on disproportionate sacrifice. Clark is not a conventional asset, and attempting to box her into an outdated model was the original misstep that cascaded into the crisis now threatening the league's stability. The story gaining traction is that Commissioner Cathy Engelbert allegedly interpreted Clark's refusal as defiance, a challenge to the long-standing belief that the league brand outranks any individual star, no matter how much value she generates. In that mindset, the shield comes first, and the rumored suspension is being positioned as discipline, a calculated attempt to humble a rookie and reassert who holds authority. It's a familiar corporate tactic: restrict access, mute influence, and wait for compliance. But that approach completely misreads the modern sports economy, where elite athletes are no longer just participants, they are self-contained enterprises, and Caitlin Clark operates as the CEO of her own brand. Trying to pressure her with a suspension is a gross miscalculation of scale and leverage, because the balance of power no longer favors the institution by default. The numbers alone make that clear. Clark's reported long-term signature deal with Nike, combined with major partnerships across global brands, places her independent earning power in a different universe than traditional league control. When an organization attempts to flex authority over someone whose market reach and financial gravity exceed its own, the move doesn't weaken the star. It exposes the vulnerability of the system making the threat. Stack that against the WNBA's maximum salary, which barely reaches a fraction of what Clark earns elsewhere, and the imbalance becomes impossible to ignore. From a financial standpoint, suspending her league paycheck would barely register for someone whose earning power extends far beyond the court, while the league itself doesn't have that luxury. Its recent media agreements, expansion ambitions, and rising ticket prices are all anchored to the momentum she created. Remove her, and that foundation starts to crack. The timing only intensifies the volatility, because the players' union has already exited the current labor agreement after recognizing the surge in revenue tied directly to Clark's impact. Sold-out arenas, improved travel standards, and record-setting viewership. That's where the irony cuts deepest. The very growth fueling demands for higher pay is the same force now being challenged. Attempting to sideline the catalyst of that progress isn't just counterproductive. It threatens to unravel the economic logic holding the league together. Yet the league appears poised to penalize Caitlin Clark for doing what elite professionals are supposed to do: protect their future. And that contradiction has cracked locker rooms wide open. While there's been no shortage of resentment from a small but loud veteran contingent uncomfortable with her spotlight, the sharper minds in the league understand the reality. If the primary draw is pushed aside, the revenue surge evaporates with her. Charter flights vanish, salary growth stalls, and momentum reverses overnight. But the real danger isn't just internal unrest. It's an existential alternative waiting in the wings. Unrivaled, the new 3-on-3 league launched by Brianna Stewart and Nafisa Collier hangs over this moment like a warning sign. It's offering what the WNBA has long resisted: ownership, premium pay, and true partnership. If Clark concludes that she's being managed instead of respected, she won't be trapped. She'll be courted. And the image of the sport's most powerful figure choosing a startup over the legacy league wouldn't just be symbolic. It would be seismic, signaling that control without collaboration is no longer a winning strategy. It would instantly legitimize Unrivaled and push the WNBA into a diminished role, turning a supposed contract dispute into a strategic blunder of historic scale. By escalating this situation, league leadership risks handing a rising competitor the most powerful endorsement imaginable, effectively undermining its own position in the market. The disconnect becomes even clearer when you look at the fan response, because this is where the league appears most out of touch. The audience Clark brought with her isn't tied to tradition or logos. They follow the player, the creativity, and the moments that made the sport feel must-watch. Remove her, and they don't migrate to another matchup. They disengage entirely. We already saw a glimpse of this earlier when her absence from a global showcase triggered widespread backlash and a measurable loss in exposure. A suspension would be that misstep multiplied many times over. Online, frustration is boiling over with calls for boycotts and leadership change, leaving the league trapped in a two-front conflict, one against its most valuable talent and another against the very consumers driving its growth. In that context, the commissioner's footing looks increasingly unstable, as every move now carries consequences that extend far beyond a single player. This rumored suspension reads like the frantic reaction of leadership that has lost its grip on the storyline. All season long, Kathy Engelbert faced criticism for inaction, staying quiet through escalating on-court tensions, and stumbling publicly with remarks that alienated fans and required damage control. Now the shift from restraint to rigidity feels abrupt and misguided, transforming a leadership vacuum into an overcorrection that targets the league's most visible figure. After allowing problems to linger unchecked, this sudden show of force doesn't project strength. It signals insecurity. Team owners, who are finally seeing tangible returns after years of patience, have every reason to be uneasy, because decisions driven by pride rather than strategy put real revenue at risk. In professional sports, commissioners answer to ownership, and when leadership choices threaten growth instead of protecting it, tolerance runs thin. Layered on top of that are labor negotiations of enormous consequence, with players pushing for a structural reset and a revenue-sharing model that reflects the league's new economic reality, making steady, credible leadership more essential now than at any point in the league's history. WNBA players are nowhere close to a revenue split like that, largely because the league has long claimed it wasn't generating real profit. But Caitlin Clark rewrote that equation in real time. With ticket sales exploding in multiple markets, merchandise surging, and verified revenue growth across the board, The so-called Clark effect is no longer theoretical, it's measurable. Against that backdrop, presenting her with an agreement that caps her upside isn't just short-sighted, it's a fundamental misread of modern business, revealing leadership that still operates as if the league is a cost center rather than a growth engine. Clark's refusal wasn't arrogance, it was competence, an understanding of value that appears to surpass the thinking in the executive suite. That tension is amplified by an undercurrent that's been impossible to ignore since draft night. As established voices seemed unusually eager to diminish her accomplishments, facts were bent to minimize her impact, and physical play crossed from competitive into targeted. That kind of environment doesn't emerge by accident, and it's precisely where league leadership should have stepped in to unite eras, elevate new stars, and protect the product. Instead, the divide widened, making this moment feel less like a labor dispute and more like a personal reckoning born from insecurity, resistance to change, and a failure to manage success when it finally arrived. By allegedly sidelining Clark, Kathy Engelbert appears to be aligning with the loudest critics instead of leading past them, reinforcing the notion that a generational talent must somehow earn permission to be great. But sports is entertainment, and in entertainment, you don't bury your headliner, you spotlight them. This move feeds the belief that the league enforces its own ceiling, restraining breakout stars the moment they threaten the hierarchy. There's also a bigger power dynamic at play. The NBA, which has financially supported the WNBA for years, understands what a true growth engine looks like, and Clark represents the clearest path to long-term independence the league has ever had. It's hard to imagine conversations behind the scenes aren't tense, with leadership being questioned about decisions that jeopardize momentum and sustainability. The goal has always been a self-sufficient league, and undermining the very force capable of delivering the future raises serious questions about priorities, judgment, and whether leadership is protecting progress or standing in its way. Suspending the league's single biggest revenue driver runs directly against the interests of everyone involved, including the NBA partners, who want the WNBA to finally stand on its own. And if this stalemate drags on, outside intervention could follow, an outcome that would be deeply embarrassing for league leadership. Imagine the fallout if the suspension actually sticks and Clark misses even a few weeks. Television ratings would nosedive immediately, networks that paid premium dollars expecting must-see programming would be livid, and quiet conversations about unmet expectations would start behind closed doors. Arenas would feel it just as fast, with once guaranteed sellouts turning into scattered crowds, not only in Indiana, but across the league, because road games featuring Clark have become annual financial lifelines for multiple franchises. Removing her doesn't just hurt one team, it drains the entire system, spreading losses from broadcasters to ticket offices to sponsors in a chain reaction the league can't afford. And at the core of it all is a deeper contradiction. After years of preaching collective growth, the league now appears willing to sacrifice the very player who made the growth real, exposing a fundamental disconnect between how value is created and how it's being managed. That league-first philosophy only works in the absence of a true global star. And now that reality has changed. The NBA learned this decades ago, rising not by selling a logo, but by embracing rivalries and icons who captured imagination and drove culture. The WNBA now faces the same inflection point, yet appears to be resisting it, attempting to force uniformity in a space where excellence naturally separates itself. Trying to diminish Clark through a suspension runs against the gravitational pull of stardom, because audiences don't connect to policies or processes, they connect to heroes and stories. Right now, fans are asking for spectacle and inspiration, while the league is offering procedure and restraint. That tension extends beyond the court to powerful partners as well, especially major sponsors who have invested heavily in Clark's visibility, future campaigns, and global reach. When a league action threatens to undermine that investment, influence shifts quickly, And history shows that brand power can reshape outcomes faster than any internal decree, leaving leadership exposed if it misjudges who truly holds leverage. Major brands often carry more leverage than franchises themselves. And if a powerhouse partner decides its investment is being undermined, outcomes change fast. The infrastructure surrounding Clark's brand is massive, yet the league is behaving as if it's the sole decision maker, ignoring the broader ecosystem it depends on. There's also a troubling mindset at play, the idea that Clark should feel indebted for the opportunity, when the reality is flipped entirely. The league benefited from her choice, not the other way around. She brought attention, relevance, and momentum to a space that desperately needed it. Turning around and sidelining the catalyst sends a chilling signal to every rising star watching from the college ranks. Stand out too much and the system will push back. That's not how you attract elite talent. It's how you drive it elsewhere, whether to new leagues or global opportunities. Instead of projecting confidence and professionalism, this move paints the league as fragile, inward-looking, and resistant to excellence, exactly the opposite of what a growing sport should represent. This standoff threatens to poison the talent pipeline for years, and as it drags on, whispers of internal unrest are growing louder, particularly around the Fever, where Clark's teammates are caught in an impossible position. They want to stand beside her, yet they understand their own futures are tied to how this power struggle ends, and by all indications the locker room sees the bigger picture. They know that leverage gained at the top protects everyone beneath it, and if the league can impose restrictive terms on its biggest star, no player is truly safe. What's being framed as discipline is, in reality, a labor fight in disguise, and the players recognize that losing this moment would weaken their position in the next round of negotiations. That's why unity matters now more than ever, and why union leadership is almost certainly urging resolve instead of retreat. For league executives, a unified workforce is the worst-case scenario, especially when the spotlight is this bright. The irony is unmistakable. The WNBA is finally dominating the non-stop sports conversation, but instead of celebrating growth, it's doing so under a cloud of controversy that exposes fractures, mismanagement, and a leadership crisis playing out in real time. With Stephen A. Smith, Pat McAfee, and ESPN's entire megaphone tearing into this leadership mess day after day, the league's credibility is bleeding out in real time, as every on-air question about why the WNBA keeps sabotaging itself drives public trust lower. Years of branding and marketing spend are being undone by a single administrative spiral, and the verdict in the court of public opinion is already locked in. The league looks like the antagonist, and Caitlin Clark has been cast as the symbol of resistance. That kind of reputational damage isn't fleeting. It lingers for decades. And looming behind it all is a threat the league can't dismiss, because it's not just leverage, it's evolution. Unrivaled isn't merely an alternative, it's a product engineered for modern consumption. Faster pace, cleaner spacing, star-driven storytelling, and highlight-ready moments built for today's digital platforms. While the WNBA leans on tradition, innovation is rewriting the rules of attention and revenue. If Clark makes that jump, it won't just be a league change. It will mark a shift in how women's basketball is watched, marketed, and valued, leaving the old model struggling to keep up with the future it refused to embrace. Aided and how it's being managed.